You know that feeling when your phone buzzes at 2:47 a.m. and your stomach drops before you even look at it? That was me 3 weeks ago. I'm lying there in my bed, dead tired from another 14-hour workday, and my phone lights up with a family group text. My heart's already racing because late-night family messages never mean good news in my world. I grab my phone, squinting at the screen, and there it is. Cold, calculated, cruel. We appreciate what you paid for everything, but we think it's best if you stay away from Thanksgiving dinner this year. We want to keep things peaceful. Stay away from my own family's Thanksgiving. After I literally saved their house from foreclosure 6 months ago. After I emptied my savings account, cashed out my retirement fund, and put my own financial future on hold to rescue them from their mess. I read it twice, then 3 times. My hands are shaking, but not from sadness anymore, from pure burning rage. 23 years of being their emergency contact, their bailout plan, their emotional dumping ground, and this is how they tell me I'm not welcome? A group text at almost 3 a.m.? I could have typed a novel. I could have called them screaming. I could have driven over there and pounded on their door demanding answers. But instead, I took a deep breath and I typed one word back. Understood. That single word changed everything for them. They just didn't know it yet. My name is Alex. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a financial analyst for a mid-size consulting firm. I make decent money. I live alone in a small but clean apartment. And up until 3 weeks ago, I was the family's designated problem solver, crisis manager, and apparently walking ATM. You ever helped people who acted like they didn't need you? People who only remembered your phone number when their world was falling apart, but somehow forgot you existed when things were good? Yeah, that was my life for over 2 decades. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from, because I want to know if this kind of family dysfunction is universal or if I just won the lottery of toxic relatives. Either way, stick around because this story gets wild. Let me paint you a picture of how I grew up. Because context matters when you're trying to understand how a family can be this heartless. I'm the older child by 4 years. My younger sibling, Jordan, was born when I was 4, and from day one, it was like watching someone else live in a completely different family than mine. While I was expected to help with chores, maintain good grades, and basically raise myself, Jordan was the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the one they called when the car broke down. I was the one who had to figure out how to stretch grocery money when Dad lost his job the first time. I was the one staying up until midnight helping Mom balance the checkbook because she just wasn't good with numbers. Meanwhile, Jordan got driving lessons in a brand new car. Jordan got college paid for without question. Jordan got weekend trips and shopping sprees and constant praise for doing the absolute bare minimum. When Jordan was 16 and crashed that new car while drunk, guess who had to figure out how to handle the insurance claim and find a lawyer? Not Jordan, not my parents, me. 19 years old, working 2 part-time jobs while going to school, and I'm the one researching DUI attorneys and calculating payment plans. When Jordan dropped out of college after 2 years of partying, who do you think had to help cover the student loan payments so it wouldn't wreck my parents' credit? That's right. Me again. I became the family firefighter, and Jordan became the family fire starter, and somehow this arrangement worked for everyone except the person actually putting out the flames. My parents would lean on me for everything: bills, planning, emotional support, crisis management. But when it came time for family dinners or celebrations, or just basic respect and consideration, I was an afterthought. Jordan was the entertaining one, the fun one, the one who made them laugh and feel young. I was just the utility, the reliable, boring utility who showed up when needed and disappeared when not. Do you know how damaging it is to grow up believing your only value to your family is your ability to solve their problems? To learn that love is conditional on your usefulness? To realize that your own parents see you as a resource instead of a person? I spent my 20s thinking this was normal, thinking this was what being the responsible one meant, thinking that if I just kept helping, kept sacrificing, kept putting their needs before mine, eventually they'd appreciate me. Eventually they'd treat me with the same warmth and respect they gave Jordan. I was so wrong, it's almost laughable. Almost. 6 months ago, my dad called me crying. Actually crying. I'd never heard this man cry in my entire life, not even when his own father died. So I knew whatever was happening was catastrophic. Alex, we need to talk. Can you come over tonight? I drove over immediately, thinking someone was sick, someone was dying, something medical and terrible. When I got there, both my parents were sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers spread out between them. Official-looking papers, scary papers. "We're gonna lose the house," Mom said, and her voice was so small and broken, I almost didn't recognize it. Turns out they'd been hiding debt for years. Credit cards maxed out, second mortgage taken without telling anyone, Dad's gambling problem that I knew nothing about, and Jordan's constant financial emergencies that they kept covering because they didn't want to burden Jordan with money stress. But they were perfectly fine burdening me with money stress, apparently. The foreclosure notice was already filed. They had 60 days to come up with $47,000 or lose the house they'd lived in for 25 years. The house I grew up in. The house that held every childhood memory I had, good and bad. I sat there listening to them explain how they'd tried everything, contacted everyone, exhausted every option. Everyone except me, of course. I was the last resort, the emergency plan, the backup option when all the real solutions failed. "How much can you help?" Dad asked, and I could see in his eyes that he already knew the answer. He knew exactly what he was asking me to sacrifice. $47,000. That was my entire savings account, my emergency fund, my down payment for a house of my own, my security, my future, my independence, everything I'd worked for since I was 16 years old, sacrificed to clean up their mess. But what choice did I have? Let them become homeless? Watch them lose everything because they were too proud to ask for help earlier, too ashamed to admit they'd been living beyond their means for years? "I can cover it," I said, and I watched the relief flood their faces. "But we're doing this properly, with paperwork, with a contract, with clear terms for repayment." They agreed immediately. Of course they did. They were desperate. I was their savior, their hero, their amazing, responsible child who came through when it mattered most. I transferred the money the next day, $47,000 from my account to theirs, with a signed agreement stating they'd pay me back in monthly installments over 5 years, starting after a 6-month grace period to get back on their feet. For exactly 3 weeks, I was the family hero. They called to thank me. They invited me to dinner. They told everyone how grateful they were, how amazing I was, how lucky they were to have such a generous child. Then, slowly but surely, things went back to normal. Jordan was the center of attention again. My sacrifice became old news. My financial rescue became something they'd figured out together as a family. The gratitude faded, the appreciation disappeared, and I went back to being the reliable background character in their lives. But this time, I had a signed contract. This time, there was documentation. This time, their debt to me wasn't just emotional or moral. It was legal and binding and scheduled to start getting repaid right around Thanksgiving. Funny how timing works out sometimes. So here I am, 3 weeks ago, staring at this text message at 2:47 a.m. Stay away from Thanksgiving dinner. We want to keep things peaceful. Peaceful. They want to keep things peaceful by excluding the person who saved their house, by disinviting the family member who sacrificed everything to keep them from being homeless. Peaceful for who exactly? I'm lying there in the dark, and 23 years of suppressed anger is bubbling up in my chest like acid. All the times I came second, all the times my needs were ignored, all the times I was taken for granted, used up, and discarded when something more interesting came along. But this time there's something different about my anger. This time, it's not the helpless rage of a child who doesn't understand why their family doesn't love them the same way. This time, it's the cold, calculated fury of an adult who finally understands exactly what's happening and has the power to do something about it. I'm not even surprised when my phone buzzes again 20 minutes later. A private message from Jordan this time, not the family group chat. Honestly, you just make things uncomfortable when you're around. Mom and Dad don't want to deal with family drama on Thanksgiving. Maybe it's better if you just accept that we don't really fit together anymore. I read it, and something inside me just breaks. Not breaks like shatters and falls apart. Breaks like snaps into place, like a bone that was set wrong finally getting reset properly. They don't want family drama. They think I make things uncomfortable. They want me to accept that we don't fit together anymore. Perfect. Let's see how comfortable things are when they realize the money they use to save their house comes with strings attached. Let's see how drama-free Thanksgiving is when those monthly payments I'm owed start coming due. I type back one word, understood, and then I get up, walk to my desk, and pull out a file folder. Inside that folder is a copy of the loan agreement my parents signed. The loan agreement that specifically states repayment begins on November 30th, 6 days after Thanksgiving. You want me to stay away? Fine, I'll stay away, but I won't stay silent, and I definitely won't stay generous. For the first time in my adult life, I'm going to let my family experience consequences without rushing in to fix everything. I'm going to let them figure out their own problems, handle their own stress, and manage their own emergencies. They want peaceful. I'll give them exactly the kind of peace they've earned. The next morning, I call in sick to work. I need a day to think, to plan, to make sure I handle this properly. Because this isn't about revenge. This isn't about getting back at them or making them suffer. This is about accountability. This is about standing up for myself. This is about finally demanding the respect I should have been getting all along. I spread the paperwork out on my kitchen table. The original loan agreement, signed by both parents. The bank transfers showing exactly when and how much money I sent. The receipts from my retirement fund withdrawal, the documentation from my savings account closure, everything properly dated, properly recorded, properly legal. Reading through the contract again, I'm amazed at how smart I was 6 months ago. I was hurt and angry then too, but I still had enough sense to protect myself legally. The terms are crystal clear: $47,000 loan, 5-year repayment plan, 4% interest rate, monthly payments of $865 starting November 30th. November 30th, 6 days after they're planning their peaceful, drama-free Thanksgiving dinner without me. I call my attorney, Janet, who helped me draft the original agreement. She's been my lawyer for 3 years, ever since I started making enough money to need professional financial advice. She's also the only person who knew the full extent of my family situation, which means she's not surprised when I tell her what's happening. You want to enforce the loan agreement? She asks, and I can hear her shuffling papers on her end. Alex, legally you have every right to do that. But are you sure this is the path you want to take? Family relationships are complicated, and money makes everything messier. Janet, they've made it clear I'm not family anymore. They've disinvited me from Thanksgiving and told me I don't fit with them. So let's treat this like what it is, a business arrangement between me and two people who owe me $47,000. She's quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll prepare the formal notice of payment due. Given that they specifically signed an agreement with this date, we're completely within legal bounds. How do you want this delivered? Professionally? Formally? On Thanksgiving Day? Another pause. Alex, that's going to destroy their holiday. Good. Maybe they'll think twice before destroying mine next time. Janet agrees to handle everything. A courier will deliver the formal payment notice on Thanksgiving afternoon, just as their perfect family dinner is getting started. The notice will include a copy of the signed agreement, an itemized breakdown of what they owe, and a clear deadline for the first payment. After I hang up with Janet, I spend the rest of the day organizing my finances. Because here's the thing, I know my parents can't afford $865 a month. I know they don't have $47,000 lying around. I know that enforcing this loan is going to create exactly the kind of crisis they've always relied on me to solve. But this time, I won't be available to solve it. This time, they'll have to figure it out themselves. This time, the responsible child is going to be responsible for their own life instead of everyone else's. I feel free. For the first time in years, I feel light and clear and free from the constant weight of other people's problems. I'm not their emergency contact anymore. I'm not their bailout plan anymore. I'm not their emotional dumping ground anymore. I'm just a creditor waiting for my money back. I spend Thanksgiving Day alone, and honestly, it's the most peaceful Thanksgiving I've had in years. I sleep in, make myself a small but nice dinner, watch movies, and actually relax. No family drama, no crisis management, no wondering which family member is going to say something hurtful or demanding. Just peace. Meanwhile, I can picture exactly what's happening at my parents' house. Jordan has probably been cooking since dawn, preparing to show off for their coworkers and college friends who are coming to dinner. Everything has to be perfect, Pinterest worthy, Instagram ready. The table setting has probably been rearranged 6 times. The house has been cleaned to surgical standards. My parents are probably rushing around trying to help, trying to make sure Jordan has everything needed for this performance. They're probably relieved that the difficult child isn't there to complicate things with awkward questions or uncomfortable truths. Jordan loves hosting because it's another chance to be the center of attention, another opportunity to play the role of the successful, put-together adult child. Never mind that the house they're hosting in was saved by the family member who isn't allowed to attend. I imagine them all sitting around the table, Jordan holding court with stories about work and dating and whatever superficial achievements are worth bragging about this month. My parents are probably glowing with pride, so grateful to have such an entertaining child, so happy to be showing off to Jordan's impressive friends. Maybe someone asks where I am. Maybe Jordan mentions casually that I was too busy to come this year. Maybe my parents nod sadly and say they wish I could have made it, but they understand that work is demanding. Or maybe no one mentions me at all. Maybe my absence isn't even noticed until the doorbell rings at 3:47 p.m., right when they're settling in for dessert and coffee. I know exactly when the courier arrives because I requested delivery confirmation. 3:47 p.m. right on schedule. I'm reading on my couch when my phone chimes with the delivery notification. Package delivered to parent's address and signed for by Margaret Chen. That's my mother. I close my book and just sit there for a moment, imagining the scene. Mom answering the door, maybe expecting a late delivery of flowers or wine from one of Jordan's friends. The courier handing over a formal envelope from Janet's law firm. Mom probably assuming it's something routine, maybe even something congratulatory. She brings it inside, maybe mentions to the table that there's some kind of delivery. Jordan probably makes a joke about surprise gifts or secret admirers. Everyone's laughing, relaxed, full of good food and comfortable in their perfect family bubble. Then Mom opens the envelope. The first thing she sees is Janet's law firm letterhead. Official, serious, unmistakably legal. Then she reads the heading, Formal Notice of Loan Payment Due. I imagine her face going white, her hands starting to shake, the paper fluttering as she tries to process what she's reading. Outstanding balance, 47,000. First payment due, December 1st, 2023. Monthly payment amount, 8 to 65 years. Failure to comply with payment schedule will result in further legal action. And then, attached to the back, a complete copy of the agreement she and Dad signed 6 months ago. The agreement they probably hoped I'd forgotten about. The agreement they definitely hoped would just disappear. Jordan's probably asking what's wrong, why Mom looks like she's seen a ghost. The dinner guests are probably shifting uncomfortably, sensing that something's gone very wrong but not understanding what. Dad probably takes the papers, reads them himself, and feels that same sinking sensation. The realization that their perfect family dinner is about to become a very public humiliation. Because here's the thing about Jordan's need to perform. It only works when the audience doesn't know about the family's financial problems, doesn't know about the near foreclosure, doesn't know that the house they're sitting in was saved by the family member who wasn't invited to dinner. I pictured Jordan snatching the papers, reading them, and slowly understanding that their perfect Thanksgiving performance is about to be exposed as a fraud, that their successful adult persona is built on a foundation of someone else's sacrifice, someone else's money, someone else's generosity. Someone who's sitting alone right now because they were told they don't fit with the family anymore. My phone starts ringing at 4:23 p.m. Mom's number. I let it ring through to voicemail. It rings again immediately. Dad's number this time? Voicemail. Then Jordan. Then Mom again. Then a three-way call from their house phone. I let them all go to voicemail and continue reading my book. I'm not ignoring them out of spite. I'm ignoring them because I need to stay calm for what's coming next. I need to be clear-headed and firm when I finally do talk to them. After the seventh missed call, I finally pick up. Mom's number again. Alex, honey, we need to talk about this. This legal notice we received. Her voice is shaking, but she's trying to sound calm. Trying to sound like this is just a misunderstanding that can be cleared up with a simple conversation. What about it? I ask, and my voice is steady. Cold. Nothing like the desperate, people-pleasing tone I've used with them my entire life. Well, we thought maybe there was some mistake with the dates. We didn't realize you needed us to start paying so soon. The holidays are so expensive, and we were hoping. Hoping what, Mom? Hoping I'd just forget about the $47,000 I gave you? Hoping the legal agreement we all signed would just disappear? I can hear voices in the background. Jordan saying something angry. Dad trying to shush them. The dinner guests probably making excuses to leave early. Of course not, honey. We fully intend to pay you back. We just thought, given that it's Thanksgiving, maybe we could discuss a different timeline. You thought wrong, I say, and the coldness in my own voice almost surprises me. The agreement is very clear. First payment is due December 1st. That's 6 days from today. Alex? And now Dad's on the phone, his voice tight with stress. Be reasonable here. You know we don't have that kind of money right now. We need more time to figure things out. You've had 6 months to figure things out. The grace period I gave you is over. But the holidays, Mom starts. What about the holidays? You mean the holiday you disinvited me from? The Thanksgiving dinner I wasn't allowed to attend because I make things uncomfortable for you? Silence. Complete total silence from their end. Then Jordan grabs the phone, and their voice is pure venom. Are you serious right now? You're going to ruin Thanksgiving over money? This is exactly why we didn't want you here. This is exactly the kind of drama we were trying to avoid. And that's when something inside me snaps completely. Drama? You think enforcing a legal contract is drama? You think expecting people to honor their commitments is uncomfortable? Let me tell you what drama looks like, Jordan. Drama looks like spending 23 years cleaning up everyone else's messes while being treated like garbage. Drama looks like sacrificing your entire financial future to save your family's house and then being thanked by getting disinvited from Thanksgiving. You chose to give us that money, Jordan shouts. Nobody forced you. You're right. I chose to help. Just like you chose to spend Dad's retirement fund on your credit card debt. Just like Mom chose to take out a second mortgage to pay for your car. Just like both of you chose to never once, not once, consider how your financial irresponsibility was affecting anyone else. That's not. I'm not finished. My voice cuts through their protests like ice. You want to know why I make you uncomfortable? Because I'm the only one in this family who tells the truth. I'm the only one who sees through your performances and your excuses and your endless victim complex. You can't stand having me around because I remind you of who you really are underneath all the pretending. Alex, that's enough. Dad's back on the phone. We're family. We don't talk to each other like this. Family? I laugh, and it's not a nice sound. When have you ever treated me like family? When have you ever prioritized my needs or respected my boundaries or shown me the same consideration you showed Jordan? You've made it very clear that I'm not really family. I'm just the emergency fund, the crisis hotline, the backup plan. That's not true, Mom says, but her voice is weak. Really? When's the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When's the last time you asked about my life, my goals, my problems? When's the last time you offered to help me with anything without me having to ask first? More silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continue, and my voice is getting stronger with every word. You have two choices. You can honor the payment schedule we agreed to, $865 a month starting December 1st. Or you can pay back the full amount immediately and be done with this arrangement. Alex, we can't. Then you better figure it out. Sell something. Get second jobs. Ask Jordan to contribute since they benefited from my money too. I don't care how you handle it, but you're gonna handle it. What if we can't? Dad asks quietly. Then you'll lose the house anyway, just like you were gonna lose it 6 months ago. The only difference is, this time I won't be here to save you. I can hear Jordan saying something in the background, something angry and desperate. I'm done being the family solution, I continue. I'm done sacrificing my life to fix your problems. I'm done being taken for granted and then discarded when you don't need me anymore. You want me to stay away from family events? Fine. Then stop expecting family favors. Alex, please. Mom is crying now. Can't we work something out? Can't we talk about this like adults? We are talking about it like adults. Adults honor their contracts. Adults take responsibility for their debts. Adults don't disinvite their creditors from family dinners and then act surprised when those creditors want their money back. I take a deep breath. You have until December 1st to figure out the first payment. After that, Janet will handle everything through the legal system. Don't call me begging for more time, more understanding, more exceptions. I gave you $47,000 and 6 months of grace period. That's more generosity than you deserved. This is going to destroy our relationship, Dad says. What relationship, I ask? The one where I give and you take? The one where I solve and you create problems? The one where I sacrifice and you benefit? That relationship was already destroyed. I'm just finally admitting it. I hang up before they can respond. My hands are shaking, but not from fear or sadness, from relief, from the incredible, overwhelming relief of finally standing up for myself, of finally saying all the things I should have said years ago. The rest of Thanksgiving evening is blissfully quiet. My phone stays silent. No more calls, no more texts, no more desperate attempts to guilt me into backing down. Maybe they're still entertaining their guests, trying to salvage what's left of their perfect dinner party. Maybe they're sitting around the table in stunned silence, finally processing the reality of their situation. I don't care anymore. For the first time in my adult life, their crisis is not my emergency. Over the next few days, I hear through mutual friends that the dinner party ended early, that Jordan's co-workers left right after dessert, that my parents spent the rest of the evening making frantic phone calls, trying to figure out how to come up with $865 by December 1st. Good. Let them scramble. Let them stress. Let them experience what it feels like to have a financial emergency without a family member rushing in to fix everything. On Monday, Jordan sends me a long, rambling text message. It starts with anger, moves through bargaining, touches on guilt tripping, and ends with what might almost be an apology. Almost. I never realized how much pressure we put on you. It says at the end, but this legal thing is going too far. Can't we find a middle ground? I don't respond. There is no middle ground. There's accountability or there isn't. There's respect or there isn't. There's equal treatment or there isn't. Tuesday, Mom calls and leaves a voicemail. She's looked into getting a loan to pay me back, but their credit is too damaged from the original financial crisis. She's applied for overtime at work. She's considering selling some of their furniture. Please call me back, she says at the end. We need to work together on this. Work together, like we're partners, like she's ever considered working together on anything before this moment. I don't call back. Wednesday, Dad shows up at my apartment building. The doorman calls up to ask if I want to see him, and I say no. I watch from my window as he stands on the sidewalk for 20 minutes, probably hoping I'll change my mind and come down to talk. I don't. I make myself dinner and grade some reports for work while he stands there in the cold. Thursday, Janet calls with an update. They've reached out to my office asking about payment plan modifications. Do you want to consider any adjustments to the original agreement? No adjustments. The terms were fair when they signed them, and they're fair now. Understood. The first payment is due tomorrow. I'll be in touch if they miss the deadline. Friday, December 1st. I check my bank account every hour. By 5 p.m., no payment has been received. I call Janet. What's the next picked up extra shifts. and Dad is looking for a second job, but we can't come up with the full payment yet. How much do you have? About, about 300. 300 out of 865. Not even half. Transfer it to my account tonight, I say. Consider it a down payment on the down payment. What about the rest? That's your problem to solve. Alex? And now Jordan sounds like they're crying. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I know we've been unfair to you. I know we've taken advantage of you. Can't we start over? Can't we try to be a real family? And you know what? For just a moment, I almost caved. For just a moment, that old familiar impulse kicks in. The need to make everything okay. To smooth over the conflict. To sacrifice my own needs to make other people comfortable. But then I remember the text message. You just make things uncomfortable when you're around. I remember Thanksgiving dinner without me. I remember 23 years of being the solution instead of the person. Jordan, I say, and my voice is calm and final. You can start over by honoring the agreement you signed. You can start over by taking responsibility for your own problems. You can start over by treating me with the same respect you'd show any other creditor. But we're not just creditors, Jordan says. We're your family. Then act like it. I hang up, and this time I turn my phone off completely. Over the next week, things get very quiet from my family. No more daily calls. No more guilt trip text messages. No more surprise visits to my apartment building. But I hear things through the grapevine. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who's been friends with my mother for 15 years, runs into me at the grocery store and mentions that my parents are going through a difficult time financially. Margaret seems very stressed, she says, clearly fishing for information. She mentions something about needing to get a second job. I just nod sympathetically and change the subject. My college friend Mike, who went to high school with Jordan, mentions that Jordan has been posting a lot less on social media lately. Usually they're sharing something every day, but it's been radio silence for 2 weeks. Everything okay with your family? Everything's fine, I tell him. They're just learning to handle their own problems for once. The truth is, I think they're finally starting to understand the scope of what I've been carrying for them all these years. Without me available to brainstorm solutions, research options, and provide emergency funding, they're facing the full weight of their financial irresponsibility for the first time. Mom's working double shifts at the hospital. Dad's taken a weekend job at Home Depot. Jordan's had to move back into their childhood bedroom and get a second job waiting tables because their previous lifestyle wasn't sustainable without family bailouts. And for the first time in years, their financial stress isn't automatically becoming my emotional stress. I feel lighter, clearer, like I've been holding my breath for decades and finally remembered how to exhale. Janet calls the following Friday with an update. They made a partial payment, $450. Still short, but it's progress. What did you tell them? That partial payments reset the timeline for legal action, but they need to communicate about a realistic payment schedule. They can't just keep sending random amounts whenever they scrape together some cash. Set up a meeting, all of us. Let's put together a modified payment plan that they can actually stick to. You're willing to negotiate? I'm willing to be realistic, but the total amount stays the same, and this is the only modification they get. If they miss payments on the new schedule, we go straight to legal action. The meeting happens the following Tuesday at Janet's office. My parents look older than I remember, worn down and tired in a way that has nothing to do with their age. Jordan looks like they haven't slept in weeks. When I walk into the conference room, the atmosphere is awkward and heavy. No one knows how to act around me anymore. I'm not their child or their sibling in this context. I'm their creditor, their business partner, their equal. It's the first time in my life they've had to treat me with professional respect. We work out a new payment schedule, $600 a month instead of $865, extending the timeline by 2 years, but keeping the same total amount with interest. They'll set up automatic transfers, so there's no room for forgetting or running short. This is the only modification you get, I tell them clearly. Miss one payment on this schedule, and we go immediately to legal collection. No more chances, no more negotiations, no more family exceptions. They signed the new agreement without argument. As we're leaving the office, Mom tries to hug me. I step back. We're not there yet, I tell her. Maybe someday, but not yet. You can't treat someone like garbage for years and then expect everything to be normal because you signed a piece of paper. Dad nods slowly. What would it take for us to rebuild this relationship? Consistency, I say. Respect. Acknowledgement of how you've treated me. Not just apologizing for this situation, but for the pattern of behavior that led to this situation. And time? A lot of time. We can do that, Mom says quietly. We'll see. That was 8 months ago. They've made every single payment on time since then. Mom calls me once a week, but now she asks about my life instead of dumping her problems on me. Dad invites me to lunch sometimes, just the two of us, and we talk about normal things like sports and books and his garden. Jordan and I are still working things out. They're in therapy now, dealing with some of the entitlement and selfishness that made our relationship so toxic for so long. They actually apologized a few months ago, a real apology, where they took responsibility for specific behaviors and acknowledged how those behaviors affected me. We're not close yet. Maybe we never will be. But we're civil, and that's more than I expected. The most surprising thing is how much better I feel about myself. For years, I thought my value was in what I could do for other people. I thought love meant sacrifice, and respect meant being useful. I thought setting boundaries was selfish, and standing up for myself was cruel. I was wrong about all of that. Enforcing that loan agreement wasn't about the money. It was about finally demanding to be treated with the same consideration my family showed each other. It was about refusing to accept scraps of affection in exchange for constant service. It was about learning that I deserve better than being someone's backup plan. Some people have called me harsh. Some people think I should have just let the money go and focused on healing the relationship. Some people believe family should always come before financial arrangements. Those people don't understand what it's like to spend your entire life being taken for granted. They don't understand what it's like to discover that your family's love is conditional on your usefulness. They don't understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is force them to experience the consequences of their choices. My parents had to learn how to manage their own financial stress. Jordan had to learn how to live within their means. They all had to learn that relationships require mutual respect, not just one person giving while everyone else takes. And I had to learn that it's not selfish to expect the same treatment I give to others. It's not cruel to have standards. It's not mean to enforce boundaries. Would you have enforced the agreement or let it go? Would you have demanded accountability from people who spent years taking advantage of your generosity? Tell me in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious how other people handle family members who only show up when they need something. Sometimes peace starts the moment you stop rescuing everyone. Sometimes love begins when you finally require it to be mutual. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is teach them to respect you. I'm still learning how to have relationships based on equality instead of utility. I'm still figuring out how to be generous without being a doormat. I'm still working on believing that I deserve consideration and kindness, even when I'm not actively solving someone's crisis. But for the first time in my adult life, I'm not carrying the weight of everyone else's problems. For the first time, my family treats me like a person instead of a resource. For the first time, I'm free to be more than just the responsible one who fixes everything. And that freedom, that peace, that's worth every uncomfortable conversation, every legal document, every moment of standing my ground when it would have been easier to give in. Sometimes the only way to save a relationship is to be willing to lose it. Sometimes the only way to get respect is to demand it. Sometimes the only way to stop being taken for granted is to stop being available to be taken. I don't know if my family and I will ever be truly close, but I know we'll never go back to the old dynamic where I sacrifice everything and they appreciate nothing. That's not love. That's not family. That's just exploitation with a prettier name, and I'm done pretending otherwise.